This Mother's Day, we want to give your mom the gift of a healthy heart. So here to talk about heart disease in women and how to stay healthy is 9 Health expert Dr. Payal Kohli. Good morning. So how is heart disease different in women compared to men, Dr. Kohli?
Good morning, Natasha. So we're increasingly recognizing that heart disease, which is the #1 killer of men, has actually also the #1 killer of women. In fact, think of 5 women that you know in your life, and unfortunately, one of them will fall victim to heart disease. And just in the few seconds that we've been talking, a woman has already lost her life to heart disease because a woman loses her life to heart disease every minute. So there's a significant burden of heart disease out there in women, and there are some key differences between women and men. So the first is the type of blood vessels that get affected. So when you have heart disease or you have a heart attack, you actually have a blockage in the blood vessel that's supplying blood to the heart muscle. So that can cause damage to the heart muscle. So whereas men tend to get blockages in the big arteries or the highways, I like to call them, around the heart, women get blockages in the small arteries or the side roads around the heart. There's also a difference in the prognosis and the complication rate, which unfortunately is worse for women, partly because their symptoms tend to be atypical.
And you know this best, you're a cardiologist. What's the most important thing we should know about heart disease symptoms in women?
You know, as women, the most important thing that we need to know is that women feel heart pain very differently from men. So, you know, we've seen the movies or we often hear heart attacks involve chest pain, but in women, often that chest pain is, very subtle or it's absent altogether. So it's important for women to know that their symptoms are atypical and they can have more symptoms like shortness of breath, dizziness or lightheadedness, severe nausea, breaking out in a cold sweat, or just a feeling of extreme uneasiness. So if you have any sort of an unusual symptom that seems severe, unusual, and unprovoked, it should really set off an alarm bell in your head that that could be a heart attack.
And finally, it's Mother's Day this weekend. What can moms do to stay heart healthy?
It is Mother's Day, yeah, and this is the best gift you can give your mom because the American Heart Association says that 80% of heart attacks and strokes are preventable with lifestyle changes and with knowledge. So let's talk a little bit about those. So the first thing you can do is teach your mom the ABCs. She taught them to you and you can teach them back to her. So A stands for moderate alcohol, so less than 1 drink a day for women. B stands for blood pressure, so blood pressure less than 130/80 for mom. C stands for cholesterol, so you want your bad cholesterol to be less than 100 for mom. And D stands for diabetes. So you want to make sure mom doesn't get diabetes, but if she has diabetes, you want her hemoglobin A1C, which tells us about the sugar control, to be less than 7%. So those are the ABCs. And then the second one is to know the signs and symptoms. So be sure when you call your mom to wish her happy Mother's Day to talk to her and tell her to take good care of herself, get plenty of rest, and just know that these can be atypical signs and symptoms. And then finally, make sure that mom seeks care early, because one of the reasons that women do worse than men is because they often don't recognize the symptoms, and healthcare providers can also miss the symptoms because they can be so subtle. So seeking care early really helps improve outcomes.
All great advice, and you're right. Yeah, detecting it, catching it early can make the difference between life and death. Dr. Kohli, thank you so much.